Apple softens liquid glass again with iOS 26.2. Here's what changed. Apple has once again adjusted its controversial liquid glass design with the release of iOS 26.2, and this time, the focus is on the lock screen. The new update introduces an option that allows users to reduce the transparency of the lock screen clock, giving them more control over how glassy the interface looks. This move follows earlier criticism from users who felt that liquid glass, while visually modern, made important information harder to read. With iOS 26.2, Apple is continuing its step-by-step rollback of extreme transparency, but instead of removing the feature entirely, it's offering more customization. What is liquid glass and why did Apple introduce it? Liquid glass was introduced with iOS 26 as Apple's new design language across its ecosystem. The concept aimed to modernize Apple's interface by making buttons, notifications, sliders, and system elements semi-transparent. These UI elements were designed to refract light and behave visually like glass, creating a sleek and futuristic look. Apple insiders believe this design direction could be preparing users for a future where Apple's operating systems extend to AI-powered smart glasses and mixed reality devices. While the idea looked impressive in demos and promotional material, real-world usage quickly revealed problems. User complaints, style over readability. After iOS 26 launched, many users complained that the transparency reduced readability. Notifications became harder to scan, music titles in Apple Music were difficult to read, and lock screen elements often blended into background images. The design looked elegant, but usability suffered. As feedback grew louder, Apple responded in iOS 26.1 by introducing a system-wide slider that allowed users to reduce the transparency of liquid glass elements, returning the interface to a more frosted and opaque appearance. However, Apple didn't stop there. iOS 26.2 Lock Screen Clock Transparency Control. With iOS 26.2, Apple adds a new customization specifically for the lock screen clock. Users can now manually adjust how transparent or solid the clock appears, making it easier to read regardless of wallpaper brightness or contrast. Instead of making a global design reversal, Apple is choosing a more flexible approach, letting users fine-tune their experience. This subtle change sends an important message. Apple may not be fully confident that liquid glass, in its original form, was perfect. A design shift behind the scenes. The timing of these changes is especially interesting. Earlier this month, Apple confirmed that Alan Dye, the design executive who led the liquid glass overhaul, has left Apple to join Meta. While there's no indication that he was forced out, Apple has replaced him with Stephen LeMay, a longtime Apple designer with deep experience in interface and interaction design. Unlike Dye, whose work leaned heavily toward visual aesthetics, LeMay's background focuses on usability and user interaction. Exactly the skills needed to refine and rebalance liquid glass. Many believe this leadership shift may explain Apple's growing willingness to dial back transparency and prioritize clarity. More new features in iOS 26.2. Beyond the liquid glass tweaks, iOS 26.2 introduces several meaningful new features across Apple's ecosystem. AirDrop codes. Users can now create AirDrop codes to share files with people who are not saved in their contacts. Once scanned, the recipient becomes a known AirDrop contact for 30 days, making repeated sharing easier in workplaces or temporary collaborations. Reminders with alarms. The Reminders app now supports alarms, allowing tasks to trigger notifications at specific times, something users have requested for years. Apple News Navigation Update. Apple News gains a new following tab at the bottom navigation bar, along with improved content organization and smoother browsing. Apple Music Offline Lyrics. Apple Music now supports offline lyrics, making it easier to follow along when you don't have an internet connection. Podcasts get smarter. The Podcasts app introduces AI-generated chapters, a podcast mention feature to link related shows, improved discovery and navigation tools. Apple Watch Sleep Score. Apple Watch users now receive a sleep score, showing how well they slept and whether they met their personal sleep goals. Major security updates included. Apple also released critical security patches alongside iOS 26.2. These updates address vulnerabilities that were reportedly used in active hacking campaigns. The patches apply across iPhones, iPads, Macs, Apple TVs, Apple Watches. Apple strongly recommends updating all devices as soon as possible. Final thoughts. With iOS 26.2, Apple is clearly listening to user feedback. Instead of doubling down on liquid glass as is, the company is refining it, slowly shifting the balance from pure aesthetics to usability. The added transparency controls, leadership changes, and focus on customization suggest Apple is still evolving this design language rather than locking it in permanently. Liquid glass isn't going away, but it's becoming more practical, more readable, and more user-friendly. And for many users, that's exactly what iOS 26 needed.